The Accountability Board regular meeting for Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. Please note in-person meeting, we encourage the community member to attend in person. Community members attending in person should observe the health and safety protocol for in-person meeting of Berkeley Board of Commissions and not only in Berkeley. The PAB acknowledges that physical attendance may not be feasible for all community members. To the extent of the director of police accountability has been exploring the option of allowing for remote participation at PAB meetings. Please note that, right, so there is a possibility, just like now, for technical complete an error. Your patience and understanding are greatly appreciated. To access remotely, join from a PC, Mac, iPad, iPhone, or mobile device using this URL listed below. If you do not wish for your name to appear on the screen, use the drop-down menu and click on Rename. To rename yourself to be anonymous. To request to speak, use the raise hand icon on the screen. To join by phone, dial 1-665-900-6833 and enter meeting ID 826-5339-6072. If you wish to comment during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 and wait to be recognized. And that brings us to our land acknowledgement. The city of Berkeley recognizes that the community we live in was built on the territory of the Huchun, ancestral unceded land of the Chichinyo speaking Ohlone people, and the ancestors and descendants of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to all Ohlone tribes and descendants of the Verona Band. As we begin our meeting tonight, we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of Berkeley, the documented 5,000-year history of a vibrant community at the West Berkeley Shellmound and the Ohlone people who continue to reside in the East Bay. We recognize that Berkeley's residents have and continue to benefit from the use and occupation of this unceded stolen land since the city of Berkeley's incorporation in 1878. As stewards of the laws regulating the city of Berkeley, it's not only vital that we recognize the history of this land, but also recognize that the Ohlone people are present members of Berkeley and other East Bay communities today. And with that, that begins our agenda with our call to order.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Just for the record, this meeting was called to order at 6:32 p.m. I will now commence roll call. Chair Moore.
Present.
Vice Chair Harris is absent.
And for the record, she did submit notification to our office prior to the meeting that she was not going to be able to attend.
Okay. Board Member Calavita.
Here.
Board Member Leftwich.
Here.
Board Member Wilson.
Here.
Board Member Blackaby.
Here.
Board Member Cayetano.
Here.
And Board Member Moses.
Here.
Okay, Chair, we have a quorum. On behalf of the ODPA, we have Director Aguilar, Investigator Wechter, Investigator Horton, and myself, Program Analyst Jose Murillo. On behalf of the BPD, we do have Captain Durbin. On behalf of the City Manager's Office, we have Ms. Coria Redondo. And on behalf of the City Attorney's Office, we have DCA Mattis.
Take us to agenda item 2, approval of the agenda. Is there anything that needs to be moved, omitted, anything that we want to comment on, change, or rearrange? Now is the time. Not seeing or hearing any objections?
I move to accept.
Excellent. And not seeing or hearing any objections, we move further. The public comment, agenda item number 3.
Okay, we will now begin public comment. Speakers are generally allotted up to 3 minutes, but may be allotted less time if there are many speakers. They may comment on any matter within the board's jurisdiction at this time. We will start with those physically present first, followed by those tuning in virtually. With that said, are there any speakers who are physically present and would like to provide public comment? 1 moment while I start the timer. Okay.
A couple of things, I really appreciate the work that you all do, appreciate it so much that I've been having a help with it. I've submitted an application as a, to be a public member of the subcommittee, if the things My background, is particularly in sort of education and sort of dealing with documents and so forth. And then I worked on, the regulation subcommittee for work. I'm now serving actually as a commissioner on the, Fair Campaign Practices Commission and the Open Government Commission. So I'm getting more, continuing to work with things that require being fair and making sure that things are clear. So it's something I can be useful in regard. I'd love to do that. And then I did want to comment on the items on your agenda this evening. The resolution that Kate Harrison put forward that the agenda committee has referred. I observed that agenda committee meeting. There were many UC students who came in support of that and basically asked for that put forward. I was disappointed and really surprised that the agenda committee decided to refer it. They talked about how there were so many complications and these rules are you know, but the actual wording of the resolution of the resolve clause is to reaffirm. Right, so there's nothing being proposed in the resolution that's outside of what's already the current policies of the police department, and that the police department works collaboratively with this body and with the PRC before that to put those policies in place, those regulations in place. So I'm confident that you will recommend that. Urge the department to follow simple rules. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I mistakenly leaving tonight. I have another obligation I have to go to, but I've come on the fact that there will be video available. Find out what it is. Thank you.
And seeing no additional physically present speakers, I will now move on to virtual speakers. At this time, if you're tuning in via Zoom and you would like to provide public comment, please raise the raised hand icon and we will call you in the order that we receive them. Again, at this time, if you're attending virtually and you would like to provide public comment, now is the time. Chair, at this time, I do not have any raised hands.
Thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 4, the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on November 8th, 2023. The motion.
Move we accept the minutes. A second.
Is there any objections? Not seeing or hearing any. Anything that is passed. Takes us to the ODPA staff report, agenda item number 5.
Good evening, Chair, members of the board, members of the public, Captain Durbin, DCA Mattis. Just want to start with some activity, recent activity. First thing, we just returned a few weeks back from NACO. It's a good experience for us, the staff, and the board members who attended. I'd like to think that they had a good time and learned a lot. For ODPA staff, 4 of us were able to attend, which it's a really good opportunity. I know colleagues that have been in the field for a while and haven't had the chance to go to NACO, so we were fortunate that we could bring so many staff members. It's a good opportunity for training and networking and exchanging ideas. We did vote for a proxy vote prior to us leaving, and there's a new board member, Kim Neal, that was voted at large. She was a top vote getter. She's the monitor out of Alexandria, and or auditor, excuse me. And George Perez Velez, who's a name that you know, former PRC commissioner, was reelected to serve on the board. Sorry, I wanted to open it up to our staff members who attended, see if they wanted to mention anything about their NACO attendance.
Ed Harness.
Hmm?
Ed Harness.
Ed Hartness was the other at-large board member. Yeah. Did you want to share anything else though about your experience, Jason, or? Okay, cool. All right. We are continuing to revisit the annual report with the feedback that you provided us. So we're trying to plan a schedule that we're gonna propose to you so we can get that out in the first quarter. We're also gonna be reaching out to ensure that we're incorporating the feedback that you want to see in there. We are also in the process of making sure we do the data request to reflect this past calendar year. So some of that data production is going to be completed. I have made some soft requests already with other departments like human resource. They also facilitate training for the BPD. That's training that everybody gets as a city employee. So that's data that we did not include in our original draft of the annual report, but we'll be including it in the future draft. We're continuing to monitor the progress of our budget ask for the reclassification of the admin position from office specialist to administrative assistant. They were supposed to have a budget and finance committee this past week. It was canceled. But I do understand that they're gonna have it again, and it should be going to council on the 12th, and it's a 2 reading item. So by January, we should know if we get that allocation approved to be able to get our admin since Marisa Martinez retired. We are also waiting on human resource to finalize the eligibility list for the associate management analyst position dedicated for data analysts. As soon as I get that list, I can start interviewing folks on that list. So I'm hoping that that will be produced before the calendar year ends, so we can start making the selection as early as next year. And we are in the final stages of procuring our complaint and intake software. It's taken a while, actually almost a year, but we're hopeful we can get it before the calendar year ends, and we can launch it next year in January. And in terms of our announcements and reminders, I did want to open up, we have a new investigator, Keegan Horton. His biography is in the agenda packet for members of the public and for board members. He had the opportunity to meet some of the board members that attended NACO, but I just wanted to give him the opportunity to do some introductory remarks.
Hello there, my name is Keegan Horton. I have been working with the OEPA for 3 weeks. I come from legal and social work background. That's so specialized in leadership development in the social services, and I'm also a JD. Previously, I used to work with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development at the Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity, where I worked on investigations in fair housing claims. I bring that experience to this job now, and I'd like to appreciate the board for having me and bringing me as part of this team.
And as a reminder, when we asked for an additional investigator, I know the board members were also interested in somebody with policy background, or can do that. I think Keegan is well positioned to also assist in policy stuff. So he was selected with that in mind, and we have been introducing him to some of the policy work that we're doing. Okay, the NACO conference is continuing, so the in-person is done, but there's also some additional webinars that are being done. They did this week some on jail oversight, but on the 14th and 15th, if you're interested in attending, there will be 8 sessions on topics related to civilian oversight of law enforcement. And that'll be from 11 a.m. to 6:15 Eastern time. And please let us know if you're interested in attending. We can procure that, or if you want to do it yourself, just submit the receipts to us and we'll get you the reimbursement. There is one of the sessions I wanted to highlight. That'll be on December 15th, 3 to 4:30. It's called Civilian Oversight's Role in Auditing Public Safety's Response to Those in Mental Health Crisis. I'm highlighting that one because the city's own auditor, Jenny Wong, is a panelist there. So she's going to be sharing her work in this space. We are sending out the save the dates. We pushed back the 50th anniversary because of scheduling conflicts and competing deadlines that we had to early or mid-January, January the 12th, right before Martin Luther King. So you should be receiving those invites if you haven't already. And we're putting the final touches in the preparations for that. We have been able to assign a contractor through the Apple One relationship that the city has, somebody that's solely dedicated on advancing that project. One thing I wanted to announce and highlight, this year we have made a lot of observations, and this also be subject to our comments in the revised annual report, but we've seen and we've received a commentary from members of the public that officers may be spending less time on the field and trying to investigate an incident brought before them, or perhaps information that's given to them doesn't make its way to the report. One of the things that we believe is at play is many factors, but one that's really contributing to this, and we hear the members of the police department report on this, are the numbers. And the city has a citywide recruitment program. I had given careful consideration to that, whether it was appropriate for our department to participate. So I want to announce, if I haven't already, that we will be participating in that. I did screen it with the city attorney's office to ensure we can mitigate any concerns about conflicts of interest. So I'm finalizing our internal policy on that, but I think we're uniquely positioned as an oversight agency in the city to recruit the kind of officers that community members want to see and contribute in that way. So I just wanted to announce that. And lastly, as we announced in the press release in collaboration with the chair, we will be independently investigating the recent officer involved shooting. Under our interim regulations, we have to wait until any of the criminal proceedings are finalized. So we are in conversations, in communication with the district attorney's office to ensure that we're monitoring that progress, and then we can commence our independent investigation. But those are all the comments that I have at this time.
We have any questions for the director?
Just, what's our authority for to into investigation? Was it like?
Yeah, our complaint investigations are hinged on a complainant bringing
Yeah,
forward.
that's right.
Yep.
I have a question.
I don't know what order.
So will the time be told then on that one?
Yes,
Has that tolling request
Yeah.
been put in?
and that's automatic tolling, but we have made the notifications to the department.
Board Member Twitch?
Yes, I was just wondering if you could send us an email about the NAPOL sessions with more information about that, and also whether we'll be getting training credit for those sessions, and just hopefully the new board members know that there's a training requirement, and I think that's something we all need to continually keep in mind, because we're all doing.
Director,
Yes.
one more question, one more observation. So, in the penal code, there's the exemption in terms of confidentiality for cases where there is a death. Can you explain how that relates to this current investigation?
So there are certain records that can now be released when it relates to personnel matters. There are still those provisions within the penal code that allow an agency or jurisdiction to withhold for a certain time while the investigation is ongoing. But I foresee, and this is the case when there's a death involved, that it will be released at some point, and the members of the public will be able to inspect the file. Does that answer, or is that?
Yes, no,
Okay.
that's right. Is it 45 days? 45 days.
There are specific time elements in there. I don't. Again, I think there's also some opportunities, and the city attorney can weigh in on this, but it also depends on how the investigation is progressing and if there's something that needs to be withheld because it might impact the investigation.
Are there any other questions for the director? No? Okay. Which takes us to agenda item number 6, which is the chair and board members' reports. First, I'm going to say welcome to our new ODPA member, Keegan. I got a chance to meet our newest investigator in Chicago, spend some time during some of the panel discussions and presentations. And I just want to say, I thought that not only was it great that I got to spend time with our newest, well, 2 of our newer board members, but it was also great to spend time with the office, and I do appreciate that as well. So that was the first thing I wanted to let you know about. At the same time, I got a chance to speak with Brian Core at NACOL, and if you guys remember who Brian Core is, he worked with our board, and for our newest members, he worked with our board on a retreat about 1.5 years ago, when we were at a time when we wanted to talk about transition and strategy and communication. But, you know, this discussion also folds into how our strategies look moving forward, what kind of planning we want to do for the next, calendar year and beyond. So, Brian has reached out to myself, the director, and what we will do is try and schedule a time within the first quarter of next year for a 1-day retreat with Mr. Core, talking about the things that we discussed last meeting about us coming together, finding our focus, getting our strategy together on the timeline as we move into 2020. Also, great to share with you guys, the director and policy analyst Mario came with me to Berkeley High School, where I got to speak with the students and the law and social justice class. For those students, I think it was a very honest and open discussion. For years they had Emeritus Chair Ramsey, who is now the Attorney General of Northern California, and before that they had Michael Chang, and then now it's just me. So I had to explain to the kids, I'm sorry, since like the birthday's laid out, you got me. But we had really great discussions, and the kids were engaged, and there was an enthusiasm to learn, especially about data and analysis. The kids were very excited about that, but we got to speak about the work that we do here, why it's important, and it was one of the best things I've done here. So I wanted to share those things with you. Now, if there's any questions for me, I'm gonna hit them up. And I'd like to open it up to board members if there's anything you guys would like to say.
Process question, didn't know whether it was this section or the previous section on the where we are with negotiations with the city attorney's office and the police union on the final regulations. I know that was, it's been in motion, so I'm just curious about where that is, expected timing, what's the next step on that, just knowing that there's a lot of interest in that involved. So just curious if we've heard where we are on that.
Yeah, is that question directed at me?
Whoever can answer.
And I wanna, the deputy city attorney, if she has any updates on that, I don't know if she has more than I can provide at this time. DCA Mathis, are you with us?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here, except that I'll just say that because of some of the sound, sometimes I have trouble fully understanding some of the speakers. So I heard questions about the investigation, but I can hear you, Director, more clearly than I can hear some of the other folks. So
I can restate loudly and shortly, status of the negotiations between the city attorney's office and the BPA on the final regs for the PAB. And kind of where that is.
Yeah, so I unfortunately don't probably have any more of a detailed update other than to say that they are ongoing. I'll say that we are in pretty regular communication with BPA and trying to get them to ahead, but I'll say there have been some just unexpected delays that we're trying to work through, and including people being on leave and other issues. So I can try and check in and see if I can get you guys a better timeline for when we expect them to be completed.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, perhaps in one of our January meetings, we could have another closed session with the city attorney's office so we can some more candid discussions about negotiations.
Yes, I think I heard a request for a closed session. Yeah, I think if let me check in with my colleague who's heading up these negotiations, and I think if there are substantive updates on the negotiations, then I'll check in with him on the best way to communicate that to the board and to the director.
Yeah, there's not an opportunity on the agenda for me to ask this question, but I have a question for the city manager, if I may. I was recently read into the quarterly report that the manager produces on the implementation of the FIP recommendations. And I was just curious if there was a way that we could have access to how the city manager's office is interpreting the February 2021 implementation guidelines, because I think specifically I'm interested in the EIS and EWS implementation, because I reached out to the mayor's office and city council's office, and it seems to me that they had a different understanding of the early warning system implementation than that is currently being implemented. And so I'm just more interested in that. And so if we can have like some sort of line of communication with them.
Yeah. I can look at
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, sorry, now that we tapped in, I did forget to turn it over. Ms. Carey's here, actually also can provide an update on the reimagining that was supposed to be presented yesterday, but just the next steps on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to suspend regular order and let her go ahead and say whatever you like right now.
Appreciate that, thank you. So I just wanted to just provide a statement and update with regards to what happened yesterday. For those of you that were in attendance, unfortunately, the action item for our status update and presentation on reimagining safety fortunately had to be pulled. So one of the things that I just wanted to, add for the record is that our dedicated implementation team remains committed to advancing our objectives in reimagining. And with that said, we are really eager to share our advancements and insights gained through our efforts in a future city council meeting. Right now, unfortunately, it's not scheduled, but as soon as we get confirmation of when it will be scheduled, likely in the new year, but as it's been said yet, I plan to, as soon as possible, that would.
I'll open it up for questions in case. Board? Thank you so much, appreciate that. And that would take us out of agenda item number 6.
Can I just make one quick comment?
Sure.
Especially for the new people. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that our first meeting in January, which would be our next meeting, will be the meeting at which nominations are made for a new chair. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so people might want to be thinking about that, and then the next meeting after that, I think, is in this.
Correct. Thank you, Board Member Calavita. I look forward to having as many opportunities for people to run for chair So
And incumbents can continue to run.
I do not believe so. I believe it's one and done. No? Does it depend on if the interim regs are done or what? I'm just saying. At the same time,
Oh, sorry, Chair, just for the record and for the members of the public, our election procedures for the Police Accountability Board are section I of the standing rules. That's all I want to say.
thank you. And that will take us to agenda item number 7. Captain Durbin, you're on.
All right, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome Investigator Horton. I just saw an email that you are now receiving the Lexipol policies as they are issued, so let me know if you have any issues, and again, welcome to you. I'll start with our staffing report. As we enter the final month of the year, we start looking at year-end statistics and trends and areas for improvement on everything from crime to complaints to use of force to training and equipment usage. Those things will ultimately make it into the annual report that we usually report in about, I believe, March. But one of the other things we will be looking at is our hiring goals. We will particularly be paying close attention this year to our hiring goals in 2023, since we did start or reinstated our recruitment and retention team as an ancillary team. We want to see how effective they have been. And we did start, as the director said, a recruitment and retention incentive program. So let me say thank you for helping us with our hiring goals and looking into that. We very much appreciate it, and we'll take good applicants anywhere we can find them. I can say that I will expect us to have a report on hiring overall for the next PAB meeting for the board in January. So you'll get a sneak peek into how we've done on hiring before we do it for the complete report in March. One thing I can report on at this time is that in this job market, we have found it particularly difficult to hire anyone for limited term positions. We had several applicants for parking enforcement officer and for community service officer express reluctance to move forward in the hiring process for a limited term position. And we believe that this is the primary reason that we've been unable to hire the CSO positions that were created as part of the reimagining process. Some cases of interest. Last week, officers attempted to stop a gray BMW. A BMW fled onto the Ashby on-ramp on I-80 eastbound. During an area check, the BMW was located on the 80 between Ashby and University. The driver fled on foot. The registered owner was still sitting in the car. During a probable cause search and consent search of the vehicle, officers located an unregistered sawed-off shotgun in the rear passenger compartment above the rear seat, along with ammunition, armored vest, and drug paraphernalia. And the owner was taken into custody for narcotics and weapons violations. Also, towards the end of last week, we had an assault with a deadly weapon via firearm. A package delivery driver was parked in the area of San Pablo and Jones Street. While outside his vehicle, a suspect approached the delivery driver and demanded his property. Driver refused, and the suspect produced a gun, demanded the keys to the vehicle. The victim jumped in his vehicle and drove away, at which time the suspect fired multiple rounds at the victim, striking the window. The driver was not thankfully hit by the gunfire, but the suspect was able to escape, and detectives are continuing to investigate that case. A couple days ago, we had a standoff on 8th Street. This happened in the morning. BPD received a report of a bullet being fired into an apartment in the 2400 block of 8th Street. Officers responded to the location and began investigating what had occurred. Through a thorough investigation, it was determined that the apartment where the bullet came from was occupied by an adult male, a juvenile, and 6 pit bulls. Officers and members of the special response team attempted to make contact inside the residence. It ended up taking about 5 hours of negotiation, but officers made contact and talked to the subject inside and convinced that person to exit the residence. He was safely taken into custody. All 6 pit bulls were safely removed by animal control, and a search warrant was served at the residence, which yielded a AR-15 style ghost gun, numerous high load capacity magazines. And so we made an arrest, and detectives continue to investigate that case. As the board is aware, and it was already mentioned, we had our second officer-involved shooting in 2023 in the early morning hours on November 6th. That is an ongoing investigation. I will not be discussing any details except to say that we will be releasing a critical incident video soon in accordance with the law. I do want to point out, I double checked with our homicide detail, because although we have had 2 officer involved shootings in a short period of time, it's still a very, very rare occurrence. We've had only 2 fatal officer involved shootings in the previous 15 years. So from 2008 to 2022, and 6 officer involved shootings total in that time span. In terms of crime trends, excuse me, I continue to talk about a trend that poses a significant risk to our officers and the public, and that's a crime trend that we continue to see rise. That's vehicles failing to yield for our officers. So that is continuing, as I've mentioned in the past few meetings. And I also know we've talked about retail theft and theft of catalytic converters over the last several months. I actually have some good news here. Retail theft continues to be a major problem, but catalytic converter thefts are down significantly. I checked with our data analysis team, and they tell me that between 6-month period, June and November of this year, we've had 78% fewer catalytic converter thefts than during the 6-month high, which would have been August to January, August 22 to January 23. So that's 136 versus 614 over our, what would be our lowest 6-month versus our highest 6 months. So that's a significant decrease in catalytic converter thefts. In regards to policies, other updates, we do expect that our contract with Flock Safety will be completed by the end of this week and next week at the latest. We will then be submitting an off-agenda item to council listing the location of the 52 cameras to be installed probably in the beginning maybe 3rd month of 2024. And that's all I have. And I will say, if anyone's talking, I'm having some of the same issues that have already been pointed out by the city attorney's office. I can hear some people sometimes, but definitely some better than others. And I evidently am having my worst time yet, because I'm not hearing anything right now.
Hear me now?
I hear that.
You did hear me?
I hear that. Yes. I hope that hopefully everybody heard me.
So you mentioned that your municipal policies are adopted, and I'm just wondering who else on staff, if anyone, gets those alerts? And I don't know if it makes sense for the board to get those, because we are, as you know, way behind on our review of municipal policies.
I think I heard bits and pieces of your question. If it's related to who gets the lexical policies as they're released, it's the staff. The PAB staff is getting them. So the director and both investigators and perhaps the analyst. I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you.
Oh, of course. Sorry if I missed something.
Speak to that.
Yeah, maybe you can just, my question is simple.
Here.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
That's perfect. Yeah.
So you mentioned the difficulty in hiring these limited term positions. Is the department seeking at modifications so that they're permanent positions instead of limited term?
Yeah, we are. So we talked to human resources about it, and they basically put it back on our budget manager to find a way to look at the cost for that they were 3-year limited terms, figure out what that would equate to for full-time positions, and he's working on that right now. So yeah, we do have to make sure it makes sense in the budget. So yeah, but we do need to, in my opinion, change those. People are not interested. It's been pretty clear that, or they're definitely reluctant on what will happen with the job after 3 years. And it was fiscal year 23. So we're already X number of a year and X number of months into the 3 years. So we're not even offering them a 3-year job at this point.
Yeah. Oh. Captain Durbin? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I just want to follow up on the vehicle failing to yield. Is that when officers are running code with their light sirens, or other situations where you're seeing that pattern of people not yielding to the officers?
Now we're talking about vehicles that don't stop for the lights and sirens. So it would be a violation of vehicle code 2800.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Moses.
Can you hear me if I speak directly at this mic?
I hear you perfect.
Regarding the retail thefts trend, is that a level change since the pandemic, or has it continued to accelerate in instances? In other words, is this?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I'd want to look at that before I answer, but my instinct tells me it's an increase, and we are now kind of steady at a heightened number of retail thefts that we're seeing. But let me do some research with the detectives and get back to you on that, rather than give you an answer I'm not certain of.
Anyone else? All right. At this time, I appreciate you submitting and answering our questions, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and sorry about the sound.
Please do. It's all right. This takes us to agenda item number 8, which is subcommittee reports. I think if everyone's in the packet, you're gonna see we have our moving worksheet here where we're trying to dial in all of our subcommittee work, members, meeting schedules. And I'm gonna pass it over to you, George.
Well, just one caveat that we, board member Cantano brought to attention, we forgot to include the off duty. But they're also included, they're an active, committee, so.
Sure.
Yes.
Real quickly, just a comment on, we're having our first commendations subcommittee next week with the chair, the vice chair, myself. And so just a request, I know board member Wilson had indicated she had some feedback. In last meeting's packet, the director and the staff put together a whole list of potential commendations. If folks have feedback, any kind of recommendations or things, please just bring them to our attention. We're gonna be meeting on it next week, and then our intention is to come back to the board, one of the January board meetings with a list for the board to approve. So have a first meeting.
Thank you. Board Member Lovich?
Yeah, I just had an update about the lexical subcommittee, if this is an appropriate time to do that. Okay, so that subcommittee is comprised of me and board member Moses and Cayetano. We had a very productive first meeting last week, and we'll be meeting again on Friday. And our initial task is to go through the chief's lengthy list of policy changes made by the department since the inception of the PAB, which includes both lexible and non-lexible policies, and just prioritize that list. So that we can address them in order of priority. Unfortunately, the chief told us that the department didn't have the resources currently to help with that task or to have members of the department participate in our meetings. But I'm hopeful that that will change, and at some point, representatives of the department will participate because it's really crucial that we work collaboratively with the department when it comes to policy matters.
And I also want to make sure your subcommittee gets information that we were privy to about municipal and municipal policies at NACO. And Investigator Wagner, do you have that policy or any of the, actually I should ask, are all of the documentation for the presentations from NACO available to this board, or is there?
We would have to, those of us who attended would have to download it, forward it to the board, but let me check on that one.
The Lexipol one I think is important too. I learned a lot of things about Lexipol as a company and what they do and how they operate. I think I should know, especially considering.
I would also, if it's appropriate, move to have Kit Saganor appointed as a public member of our subcommittee, because she was really valuable
Thanks.
on the regulations.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll proceed with the vote, just our standard.
This for which subcommittee this are? Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
And we certify according to standard rules that Kate is a resident of the city of Berkeley, and she did present herself before the board at a time of the appointment and was able to speak publicly on the record with intent to serve.
Okay, I'll start with roll call vote, Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Harris absent, Board Member Calavia,
Yes.
Board Member Lockwood,
Yes.
Board Member Wilson,
Yes.
Board Member Blackley,
Yes.
Board Member Cayetano.
Yes.
And Board Member Moses.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Thanks. And Investigator Wagner, if you can find that, you could send the information to Board Member Lockridge. She can disseminate it to the subcommittee, that would be awesome. Thank you.
I just also want to note that we're receiving important staff support from program analyst Mario and policy analyst Murder, so we appreciate that assistance.
And can I ask that your subcommittee, as long as that you guys are standing, that you find ways to make sure you're made aware of all municipal changes and policies that are coming or can, so if we can work that out. And then you got a lot of backlog, but to stay on top of it as well.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, I think one of the challenges will be differentiating between the changes to a comma or period and the substantial changes, so any information, any additional context you can provide.
So, and. Yeah, we know the this is big,
Well, I don't think this is the right time. We're gonna talk about the planning section. That's all.
I think, and we apologize on our end for the confusion, for now, and the way that was happened last time, we sort of discussed more of the logistics of the planning for it. So part of that discussion with smaller group of board members was what the topics were, sort of a systematic review of what had been discussed, what had been expressed, and from that planning essentially coordinate the strategic planning session.
So that conversation has already happened. The smaller conversation to plan the planning session.
No,
Okay.
and I guess what we were getting at, because, in terms of the items that were listed, they're more of like, these were some of the topics that recently brought up. Could be considered for that discussion,
Okay,
not necessarily like this is what's gonna be, it's more of the here are some ideas.
but we're gonna talk about that topic list today. It's on the agenda.
It'll be more of a discussion for like that initial group, how the board decides to approach it.
Okay, well then I'll just make my comment now. I think we have too many subcommittees. I've said this before, but I'm also, now that I'm working with Brent on the budget, we're putting in a lot of costs for staff. I do feel like, on the staff side, it would be really helpful for you to give us honest feedback on your assessment of capacity, because I can just imagine if like all of there's two actually I'm working on, and two got like big data requests, a lot of asks, and hearing from board member Lethwich, how great you guys have been, but I just think we have to be realistic about what you can do. And that also forces us to have the prioritization conversation that I think we need to have, but all of that can be part of the planning sessions. We don't need to have that right now. I just wanted to put that out there that I do think we need to have that conversation. Whatever is appropriate.
Okay. I think it's appropriate now. I think we're gonna go into new business. We're gonna withdraw, the POD meeting schedule, and then we'll strategic planning section right after.
Okay.
So we're looking into it right now, and we'll discuss the meeting schedule. And we'll go from there.
So we proposed two schedules for the board to consider. We didn't propose a time because I know that's usually point of discussion that we had last year and that we might have today about when our start time is. But the two options that we provided has our traditional Wednesday date. This was the date for 2022, this is what we did this year. But we also wanted to open it up to, it's not binding necessarily to Wednesday. After reviewing the council meetings and all the holidays that we've been provided to avoid, Thursday would also be, in terms of avoiding conflicts, a good day. So we just wanted to pitch those to you. We have to turn these in early January. In the admin side, it's very helpful if we could get these done as soon as possible. Because we could get on terms of reserving spaces a lot sooner. So we're happy to field any questions in terms of the scheduling, or if there's a strong preference. Now's the time to let us know.
I'll voice my preference first. I would prefer to keep it the same as this year, but only because there's gonna be some Thursdays, I imagine next year, where I'll be out of town Thursday night, traveling Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I would prefer to keep it at a time where I know I'll be in town, but that's just my personal.
I'd probably prefer to keep it on Wednesdays too, because I have a standing meeting on Thursdays that,
Well, I also think that we should keep it as we've had it, since some of us have sort of planned accordingly.
and the public has been used to it,
And
because
the
the
public is
PRC
used
always
to-
met on Wednesday.
Yeah,
Agreed. Wednesdays.
And then prior years, the board start time was at 7. Last year, we got some feedback saying that our meetings went on too long into the night. So it was discussed to have it at 6:30 after a brief compromise between the start time of 6 and 7, so 6:30. Is there any feedback on that discussion?
I think we're in a sweet spot at 6:30.
I like the 6:30, yeah.
There was one day where we got out at 10, and I can't imagine getting out at 10:30.
No,
oh, we were. To go away.
Don't we have a hard stop here anyway, in technically?
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay.
The motion.
Yeah, spirit changes, look, any version for injuries. I think you almost had form of working with.
Yeah, I move we approve the Wednesday night 6:30 schedule.
And I second that.
Is there only one meeting in April because of religious holidays, or why is that?
Yeah, so there's conflicts with the religious holidays, some of them, and I've noted them in page 25 of the packet, if anybody's curious. There's some months that have more than others. One of the goals also in setting up this calendar was that we also want to give space in between for special meetings. I know we've had some instances this year where it was a meeting, something came up or something we needed to discuss, and there's a special meeting, and there's essentially 3 weeks of back-to-back meetings. So we want to make sure we're also aligned with the charter. The charter only requires us to have, or requires us to at least have 18 meetings. The proposals each have 19. So we're in accordance with the charter, and we still have that flexibility in the case that we need a special meeting, so. And from a staff perspective, it spaces us in our capacity, to prepare for the meetings as well, so.
It makes no difference, just putting this out there. I know for a fact that we don't move things out, and I'll be here on April 3rd. But that's, I try to plan this every year out, so I'm saying the year.
March 27th?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, if the meeting is April 3rd, I know I'll be there, but it's my phone, I'll be there.
And I'm vice versa.
Okay. Keep it the way it is, let's keep it where it's at.
Just to clarify, the expectation is 18 meetings a year. I think this is a 19 meeting schedule.
And again, traditionally, on the last of November and December, because we have a huge gap because of the holidays, we've always kept that additional meeting in November, December, just to discuss any end of year business. And that's just how it works out in 19.
So we have a second, I'm going to.
Okay, so go ahead, Chairman,
Yes.
Board Member Palladino.
Yes.
Board Member Pavlovich,
Yes.
Board Member Wilson,
Yes.
Board Member Blackley.
Yes.
Board Member Cayetano,
Yes.
and Board Member Moses.
Yes.
And Vice Chair Harrison absent, the motion carries.
Okay.
This is off again, I'm so sorry, what's the status of our building here?
I am working with the counterparts in the city, there is a legal review that I am planning to find, but there's also now, another element of equipping the new space with the IT requirements that we're gonna need for that additional step that is being done. The lead staff person in the city has been working with the owner, and there's a possibility that if this process is delayed more than we anticipate, they could offer right nearby, temporary location free of charge until we move into our final location. So we're considering that, we're running out of space in our, so especially if we make our two selections for our vacancy soon, we're gonna need that temporary space.
So, this is gonna take us to agenda item 9B. Discussion and action regarding the 2024 PAB strategic planning set. I'd like to open this up, board member Wilson, would you like to take comments?
Sure. So the material for that is the supplemental, which is the document that you put together for your evaluation.
It doesn't address all of those points, it specifically addresses, the item 9B. Number three, to be, yeah, so I was sharing something, that I provided to council earlier this year, pursuant to, our agreement when I took on the role, there was a co-development of the, evaluation for my role. In terms process wise, I don't know what, relationship or what the council has contemplated in terms of the board input in that process, but I did provide them that document, and as you guys are engaging in this process, I wanted you to have that to see if there's any synergy there, or to have that as consideration, or where my proposed work plan is for my office, for my role, but for the office as well.
Okay. So one question I had is, what did the council do with this? Did they adopt it? I don't know, I'm sorry, I should know this, but like, when you were hired, has it already been a year?
Yeah, I completed a year, in late October. They have received it and reviewed it. They have not established a formal evaluation for my role yet. I was informed that in the November season, we would be having these discussions about evaluation, so I'm still waiting to hear further, feedback on that. But at this point, this is just a proposal, it has not been formally adopted.
Okay.
But it has been allowing me to guide our office work plan, and that's what I've been utilizing sort of priority setting.
Okay, and then with respect to the process you were talking about, it sounds like we've secured a consultant to facilitate the planning session, someone that you guys have used before. And in the past, we had a couple board members work with staff and the consultant to plan the plan. Is that how it's been before?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think my thoughts are very organized right now. I have some though. It's an interesting structure that we have where we're a board and you're in an office. And we don't supervise you or the office, right? Like I have a board and the board is my boss. So that makes things super clear. This is like, it's different. And so I think part of maybe what might be helpful, but maybe not, is really understanding our roles and their role distinction. Like a lot of the stuff I see in your goals, like they make perfect sense and they're entirely under your purview, and I don't think we have a role. For example, like I don't think it would be appropriate for us to start trying to direct your internship program or who you hire or how you do that. However, right, we do want to, I think, need to figure out like investigations versus policy review. For on the policy review side, we have a proposal, we have to, we know we have to do some additional thinking about what the policy review process looks like, and that's where we can like self-initiate on our own. Our decisions about how much policy review we want to do, what we want that to look like, impacts you and your staffing. Just like us having this like mushrooming number of subcommittees, it impacts you and your staffing. So I do think some conversation about that, like what are clearly our spheres of influence or control, and then how do decisions that each of us make it, or where are they impacting the other, and where should we have some input? Like I guess if you decided to hire all investigators and no data analysts, that would be very challenging for us, since a bunch of us are asking for a lot of data. But yeah, we don't have control over what kind of staff you hire, really. So that's, I feel like there's some part of our planning session that should be around that topic. And I know substantively for us, like I'm very interested in the policy review piece, which I had asked, I think, because they were gonna talk about it today. Because we have your proposal on the table, you brought forward all that, all those examples from other jurisdictions, certainly lots of ideas from Maple. Right, I mean, like, that should be super interesting, so I think we need a portion of the section where we talk policy review. Maybe a portion where we're talking charter amendments that we'd like to see, if that's gonna be a strategic priority for. So I think that's.
Is the goal to have board members volunteer to participate in the planning of this? I'm just trying to figure out what are we doing right now.
So usually, this is what we did last time, is it was a small group of us that met the plan and the direction. And we charted the best way for us to tackle within a 1 day retreat. Our priorities, where we see the more goals for the year, and basically the different sections that we have throughout the day. So we didn't arrive at any conclusions within the planning. What we said was, hey, these are the issues that this board is dealing with. Here's the best way for all of us to come together and come to a consensus. And when I say that, it's because, you know, we're as much as I respect and value board member Wilson's on subcommittees, like this is the only way I've seen this work done and done effectively. That we have to balloon. I was waiting for all of you to come join us so we can have these subcommittees. So this is where this is my end game, guys. This is the more workhorses that we have. And I like to say the ODPA are the workhorses. Show works. They were gonna come in, we're gonna put the data together, we're gonna the things that I've been looking for, back us up and support us. And what we do is we make this work accessible to the community. And however we want to find out, wherever that looks like moving forward, that's a good decision. And I would ask that, you know, it's another subcommittee, but we're gonna need people to come together with Brian.
Well, one thing we can do, and I was involved in it last year, and I'm happy to do it again. I think we need to pick a date. It's a Saturday. Also, so people know it's a Brown acted event. So the public, can participate and it's being recorded. So I was just looking at the calendar. So, and I think we should do it pretty early in the year because we're planning for the next, upcoming year. So, but I also think it would be good to have time for whatever group wants to get involved in this, and then to bring it back to the board to make sure that the board is okay with the agenda. I don't think we did that before, and I think it's important that there's buy-in. And I agree with Wilson about needing some clarity regarding the interaction, because it isn't in the charter. So, we need to, I think it's important to focus on that. But also the idea is to be aspirational and think, well, what do we want to do? There are all these things that come at us, but an idea, what would we like to make sure that people, have time to think about that and express their thoughts about that. So just looking at the calendar, say if we did like January 20th, that doesn't give us maybe February 3rd, because that would give us a chance for this small group to come together and first to have a couple of meetings. We can't do it too soon. So I think we should talk about the date that works in it. It will be a Saturday.
I think we'll have to do that through a Google poll. Doodle, what do you call it?
Doodle. Exactly.
Yeah.
I
don't think we can do it.
Instead of doing to see a Saturday retreat in the first
Like early,
month,
yeah.
6 weeks.
But let's keep in mind, I totally appreciate the desire to do it soon. But again, we're gonna be asking for some support to put together material for the meeting. We have to get the annual report done. I just want to be realistic about like the time frame because we want to have a meaningful planning session. So maybe like within the first quarter, so that it could be in March, beginning of March.
I just feel like that's like we're talking about our goals for the year in March.
Yeah. I think maybe so. Some of this is different from goals for the year, like roles and responsibilities is like a structural kind of conversation. So maybe we could bifurcate topics a bit. I agree with you being aspirational though, like one of the things I just jotted down, like I want us to be taken seriously. I don't like that the police chief and the city manager have rejected all of our findings or whatever the right terminology is, like I don't like it. So being aspirationally, like if that's a goal, how can we back into that? To me, that involves like community engagement and the whole communications piece and some other things. So anyway, I just agree with that idea of thinking big. So it's a lot of topics probably beyond a one-day retreat. Maybe our first conversation is like very tactical goals for the year. And maybe a second conversation is these bigger. More
Yeah,
systemic.
I was going the next chair maybe, who's gonna have to hit the ground running on the first quarter. If you wanna talk about roles and responsibilities, let's go ahead and level that out for Lord, then more slowly. And I think those are the conversations that, especially the new members should be seeking clarity. So what we're trying to do is find a way for you to be comfortable in your roles, clear about what the expectations are, and then we can get aspiration. And I look forward to that from a different chair. Oh, great.
I just want to recognize that I think there is a tension there in terms of like division of labor and what our role is in terms of supporting you. I do think, and I don't know if it was an oversight or it was intentional, but there's language in the charter in my reading that suggests that there was a contemplation for board to have its staff. And also you have the office staff, but it often also gets conflated, as in the office is the staff of the board, but there's also language that says the board staff. and then there's separate staff. So I think in terms of being aspirational, it might be helpful to really consider your resources, and like, if you need to ask for more staff, then that, we need to do that, because there's a lot of great things the charter wants us to do, but we don't have all the resources that we need to do it.
And I think, yeah, you're touching on the reality that there is a lot that we want to do aspirationally, but we are struggling a lot tactically. And identifying and understanding those tactical challenges of how we operate on a day-to-day basis efficiently, how do we consider the accomplishment of goals on a monthly basis seems to still be an open question for us, and something that is foundational for us to achieve our aspirational goals effectively, and is also not necessarily tied to an annual planning. I mean, to put it another way, it strikes me that we are still we are operating on an ongoing basis yet, right? We're still, can we evolve a standardized and efficient way that we operate? So I would worry about us focusing too much on things that we want to accomplish and not enough on how do we accomplish anything. I don't know if that has to, if that is two different conversations to your earlier point, right? That do we see, are you thinking of this strategic planning as the conversation around what are our goals regarding our relationship with the police department, or our goals around policy review? Or is this more how do we allocate resources effectively, and what's the what's the more where are some of our inefficiencies that are slowing us down or breaking things up?
I would say I love those spring coordinator ones. My answer would be yes, all of them. Like, all those topics
Are one.
are all those things that we're gonna tackle on Saturday day.
Nice.
I don't think we can do it all in one day.
You're gonna be so surprised. I said, we can do it. You've done it before, you won't believe.
Okay, we need,
Just,
we need to name names, right?
exactly.
We need to name names, but I also want to say, yes, we may be able to do all of those things. But for the group of people who's gonna, and it's not me, group of people who's gonna be in this small group, I think it's really important that the topics be concrete and doable with time limitations, because I think it was fine last time, but we tended to meander, and I want to make sure that we get things accomplished.
I hear that, and I think we, in a lot of this work is, we fall victim to circumstance. As much as you'd like to say, this is where we're headed, but we have cases and situations and
Yeah,
things that come upon our calendar that we have no control over, which is also the nature of this. So as much as everyone's like, I wanna get this planning going, we can have a great plan until we have an incident that's gonna change our calendar dramatically. And that's exactly what happened.
yes.
So I just wanted to put it in perspective as, or inefficient.
No, I meant the meeting, the retreat, and that we, far from, I thought that the day retreat had a way of meandering.
So fair, for the retreat, that's the energy of
So could we get, as I said, I'm happy to volunteer to be in this group, could we get any other board members? And then I would think we should have a reading of the post agenda back on the January 21st meeting for the board to consider.
I think it's a great timeline. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that sometime?
Sounds good.
When you say you volunteer to like 7.
All of it.
Thank you both for your service on this, and it's going to, be here.
And I will email you to my ideas.
And that would take us to. Yeah, I think we're good here. Well, is there anything else that we'd like to discuss along the agenda items for 9B? Anything we didn't tackle that we'd like to bring up?
Just to clarify, why does it have to be a Saturday?
Well, it's all day, I mean, if we could do all day during the week, that's fine, so maybe that could be part of the
Noodle, what's it called?
doodle.
Sorry.
I mean, unless people know right now that that's not a
It would
possibility.
be super hard for me to.
Yeah,
do it during the week.
Okay, so let's just stay with
Then you
that.
can choose Saturday or Sunday.
Right, yeah, that's important.
I agree with that.
So are we supposed to address number 3 on this, 9?
Now, discussion of being able to report drafting procedures and anticipated deliveries. Bernard, how would you like to?
No, I don't know what it means.
We touched on this topic, I think the way that we had structured this and we envisioned it is essentially how we have about the discussion of how we want this strategic planning session to go, just not that conversation.
Cool.
So I think we covered the topic.
All right, so that'll take us to one last, I'm gonna open it one last time. Anything else on this? Anybody wanna make a comment?
Well, I just had a quick question. I'm forgetting his name, the gentleman that helped them.
Brian Ford.
Yeah, so were you saying, so is this something that the board member and I should start discussing and coming with ideas? Or were you saying that he will be in on the initial conversations, or when does he?
That's up to you. I know he's comfortable with the initial conversation. He wants to communicate and reach out.
So you're saying we should include him whenever we're.
I think that'd be a great
Okay.
idea. I think he's comfortable with that. Yeah, all right. So that's gonna take us to 9C, discussion and action regarding the agenda rules, council committees, referral of Councilmember Harrison's draft resolution, opposition to police brutality, and the use of force of non-violent protesters. We're gonna review it right now. And this,
So, yes, so you can see Councilmember Harrison's resolution beginning on page 38 of the packet. And the first few pages are all background. And the resolution itself begins on page 42. And there's many whereas, and if you turn to page 43, what it says is, now therefore be it resolved that the council of the city of Berkeley reaffirms its objection and denounces any and all police brutality. Be it further and finally resolved that the city of Berkeley strongly urges the UC Police Department and any other outside departments from using tactics and machinery that is against Berkeley policy. So my thought, I read the resolution, the background and the resolution carefully, and it seems to me that this resolution is, resolution is not an ordinance. It's a statement of opinion and intent, and this is reaffirming the objection already in policy to police brutality and to certain pepper spray and so forth, and also reaffirming their urging outside agencies and departments from using things that are not according to policy within Berkeley. These are things that are already in policy. I'm really unclear as to why it was referred to us. And so I took the liberty of, on page 31, of just putting together something that says, we don't see this to be in our purview. It can be edited and changed, but I don't believe that we need to re-examine our use of force policy or anything else. And therefore, I would suggest that what we do is we send it to council and say, no comment.
And can you clarify the red line version, what that represents from 45 on?
I think that was a previous version that was, redlined perhaps by the, I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly, but it's,
But in other words,
redlined by Councilmember Harrison.
so is version, the version starting on page 38, the one that we're discussing?
Yes, yes, yes.
And this looks like it is an addition.
The redlining is changing things like, tear gas to CS gas and things like that.
Right, and some additional paragraphs.
Some additional paragraph, yeah.
But that's the council item, right? That's not the policy. That's
Yeah,
red
that's
line.
That's the background.
It's just her memo to council.
Right.
That's red line. It's not amending the policy.
Nothing is amending a policy.
Yeah.
Right, I said the resolution, it is an alternate version of the resolution,
Right,
is the red line.
yeah. Yeah,
Well, I
So I don't know.
appreciated your taking the time to do it. I also thought it was a weird referral. And I agree with the recommended referral.
We think the context is really, they just want to make sure, hey, there's nothing in this resolution that runs counter to policy. I just wondered that the context. They just make sure, I don't know, but I read it the same way, which is like, they just want another set of lines to make sure. Again, it's not binding, it's a resolution expressing a sense of the council, but just to make sure there wasn't anything in there in the enacting provisions of the resolution that were counter to what the current policy is.
that could be, so paragraph 3 in this thing I put together, the PAB does not see anything in this
Right.
statement that requires a policy change. At the end of that paragraph, we might want to say, and is asking other, it's just that Berkeley is reaffirming its stance that is taken on police brutality and is asking other agencies, we could add, and is asking other agencies to follow our policies when they come into Berkeley.
Right.
I thought this was good too, thank you for doing it. My only suggestion was to change the red line so it's more descriptive, I didn't understand that.
I'm sorry, what?
I would just change the red line, the subject line,
Oh, yeah.
but other than that,
And it's just a mark, no, this is a.
Oh, yeah, well. Yeah, because that was a typo when the staff put this together. It put it on a, it put it on a piece of paper that was intended to invite a council member to our meeting. Yes, thank you. That's, yeah, so the title would be different. That was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether we want to say anything about the resolution that we also, are opposed to police brutality.
I don't think so.
Also, we don't review resolutions, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an odd referral, and I think that we should send it to council and say, we don't think this is our purview, along the lines of this. I would add a friendly amendment to my own proposal. At the end of paragraph 3, it reaffirms the stance, blah, 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 that Berkeley has taken on police brutality and less lethal force, and is asking other agencies to follow our policies.
My only comment then is in paragraph 4, I mean, do we want to narrow our, like, I would
Yes.
just strike the section about not being within our sphere of operation. I think like we should welcome it and
Right.
say, we did look, we think it's consistent with previous policy, nothing in here that's objectionable or runs counter to, in our view, for what,
Right.
that's all. That was
I
my.
agree.
Right, so maybe we want to strike the last paragraph.
It's not believe it is within our sphere.
Right, because I think we,
So
well,
I think where Wayne is consistent with striking the last paragraph, adding the additional sentence and moving to push this forward.
Yes.
Yes, I would only, my one just, language recommendation would be, to, move the underscoring the Berkeley policies already in place into the forefront, and then moving the opposition to police brutality secondary, simply to do whatever we can to, reinforce that this is not a position to change what already exists or to somehow, my concern is that there's an implication from this, resolution that, the Berkeley Police Department is engaged in these practices today.
So what would you say?
I would say, according to our reading the resolution, underscores the Berkeley policies already in place and is a statement reaffirming. But then I would simply, try to bring forward the fact that these are existing policies rather than, things we're trying to change.
So just reorder that.
Exactly, just reorder that sentence.
Is staff on that? Okay.
So that's a friendly amendment, if you accept it.
I accept it.
All right, so then I'm gonna ask, after you get that done, we'll take your time and your script. I'm gonna ask us to go ahead and get a vote on that.
Great, and then the only other friendly one, can we just deputize one, like, board member Calvita to be the final set of eyes or something, like,
Yes.
that's all. So then,
And I don't know what you did on that.
she is, the staff at the end, we're blessing that process and she's pushing, okay. Okay.
I accept.
I move to accept the resolution for our response and the amendments.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thanks.
Okay, I proceed to roll call vote now. Chair Moore,
Yes.
Board Member Calvita,
Yes.
Board Member Lethbridge,
Yes.
Board Member Wilson,
Yeah.
Board Member Blackenby,
Yes.
Board Member Cayetano,
Yes.
and Board Member Lewis.
Yes.
Perfect, motion carries.
Well done, John. Okay, y'all well done. It's been a long day for me. We take this to, as in item 10, which is public comment.
Okay. We will now begin public comment. We're generally allotted up to 3 minutes, maybe a lot less time. If there are many speakers or may comment on any matter for the board's jurisdiction at this time. We will start with those physically present before proceeding to those who are tuning in virtually. At this time, is there any? Well, at this time, there are no physically present speakers. I will now move on to our virtual speakers. At this time, if you have tuned in virtually and would like to provide public comment, if you could please raise your hand and we will call on the order that we receive them. Again, we are currently taking public comment from those attending virtually. If you would like to provide public comment, now is the chance. Chair, at this time, I do not see any hands.
And that takes us to agenda item 11, which is those sections.
So for those attending virtually, feel free to remain in the webinar. We'll be continue to leave it open while we're in Easter closed session. We will now pause the recording.
Thank you.
In the news.
Oh, yeah, happy holiday.
Brings us back into open session where the board has accepted the sustained findings and is partially modifying the third. May I have a motion to close?
Yes, administrative closure.
Yes, we have one administrative closure.
Okay, motion to close.
Second.
And we are out. Thank you all
Thank you.
very much.
Can we leave these